But once you get your two sides so that they are have their dados and the rabbit through here, the dados and the rabbit, and they are exactly the same length and width and square. And then you also do the same thing and get your shelves so that they are the same length and square and the same width as your sides. Then you're ready for assembly. When you get ready for assembly, first make sure that you dry fit it together. When you dry fit it, it might be difficult to fit these shelves inside the dados because it might be a little crown to it, or might be a little bit thick. Well, we just take care of that in the best means possible. This one, it's just going to be a tight fit, which is good. We like it tight. We want to make sure when we put it together that it's going to be nice and flush on the front. That's where we put our face frame, and we want these to be nice and flush. We don't want one sticking out proud. Otherwise there'll be a gap when we assemble everything past this point. So we're good here. It's going to fit nicely, and so we're ready to put it together. I'm going to be using the nail gun. I'm going to be putting 3 nails in through the dado into the shelves. So what I want to do is make sure I hit those right in the middle. Otherwise my nail, when it exits out the side, it will shine out and I'll have a nail sticking out here or a nail sticking out here. So to avoid that, I just put my pencil in the center of my shelf, make a little mark, and put a square on there and just draw a real light line. Then I'm going to be using these 1-inch brads. I want to make sure I have some glue in here. I don't want to have so much that it squeezes out and makes a big mess on the inside, but I want to have enough where it does the job. So once I get that, kind of spread it around a little bit in there. Put this back together. I want to again double check it, make sure that I have it lined up exactly where I want it. You can feel it. Feeling it is probably better than using your eyes. Your fingers are going to be very sensitive to that, so you can just feel it and see if it's flush. And if it is, then go ahead and nail it. I want to get 3 nails, come in about 1.5 inches or so. Put that right on the line that we drew so you know it's not going to shine through. 3 nails is plenty. And now I find that the best thing to do is to clamp it up after this. But before I do that, make sure that everything's where I want it. And I'm going to get ready to put my back in. So if these are nice and tight, which they are, I can go ahead and maybe you've already measured it and figured it out. So I want to put a square up here and make sure I got it nice and square before I continue. It's looking pretty good, but I think I'm going to need to manipulate it just a little bit. You can check for square using one of these. If you can't find one of these, the other way you can check for square is measure from corner to corner, 16 and 1/8. Bingo, that's good. So now I know I have a good square. So now I'm going to go cut myself the back out of some MDF or 1/4 inch plywood to put in here. Well, I've got my piece cut and it fits, and I dry fit it and it fits nicely into the opening. So now I'm just going to take a small, just a tiny bit of glue in here. I really don't, you don't necessarily need glue, but, and then I'm going to put the nice side facing in because this is probably going to be against a wall most of the time. So I'm going to put that in. Now, when I nail this, when I pin this together, I want to make sure I have smaller 5/8 inch nails in here instead of these 1 inch. Those would just be too long and I'd certainly have things sticking out. So I'm going to put some small ones in there. And I'm just going to ever so slightly angle it when I shoot it in there so it hits that dado. Excuse me, that rabbet. This should help square it up, but if you wanted to, you could always turn this over and make sure. You don't want to angle it too much because it will shoot out the side, and that wouldn't be good. So just a tiny bit, not very much. Stay away from that knot because it'll definitely something bad will happen if you do that. Now the glue's still wet, so what I would like to do is I'd like to clamp it up, make sure that these are nice and tight joints in here with some clamps, and also maybe throw a clamp or two on there to make sure it's square. I have a couple clamps on the bottom to hold it. I've done this where you just have 2 clamps, and I've done this where I've done 4 or 5. I'll show you all the way up to 5 here. But some people, you don't even need to clamp it sometimes. I just like to make sure these are in the right spot and everything is holding tightly. So before I tighten them up, I'm just kind of putting them into place right now. Before I really tighten them up, I want to make sure that I have my box nice and squared. So trying to leave myself a little bit of room so I can get a square in it. I'm off just a little bit. Sometimes you can just manipulate these 4 clamps and tighten them, loosen them, and that is enough. But what I kind of seems to help out quite a bit, putting your clamps at an angle like this, and you can put it on the wood, you can put it on the clamps themselves, it really doesn't matter. But just tweaking them just a little bit and just getting a little bit of pressure on there. There we go. Nice square box, that'll turn out nice.